You are listening to the Critical Mass Radio Show, Orange County's business talk show, focused on exploring topics of interest to CEOs who are leading middle market companies. With your host, Richard Franzi.
Hello and welcome to Orange County's longest running business talk show. And yes, I am your host, Rick Franzi. We have an exciting show planned for you today. Why do you ask? Because Henry Park is our guest. He's the co-founder as well as the executive partner, for Pandoblox. Henry, is there anything else I missed about your entrepreneurial career?
Chairman of Guerrilla Community Movement, the nonprofit.
Well, we're going to talk about all that here today on the show, but let's start with your original inspiration and motivation to be the co-founder of Pandoblox. Can you take us back in time and share your origin story?
Yeah, for Pandoblox, that started 7 years ago, and what inspired that was the big buzz and the big innovation that was brewing around blockchain. So, and I'm not talking about crypto. Crypto I got involved a little before that, but it was really the potential of changing the way information is shared amongst enterprises. That was the big inspiration. So Pandoblox, the name stands for Pando, the biggest tree system. There's a root system called Pando that spans from the East Coast, New York, all the way down to California. Though it's a one tree root system. So Pandoblox, yep, that's where we got the name.
Okay. And you're co-founder, so you must have had other founders who saw the vision as well.
Yes. There was one other who started with me, and then had another partner join after that.
So for those that may be the casual observer of digital currency and technology, such as what we're talking about, I'm wondering, when you launched Pandoblox, were there any pivots to the business model? Any aha moments? Is the model today the same as what it was when you had a vision for it?
Oh, we've had 3 pivots. So,
okay.
When it came to the blockchain potential, the potential's still there, and the broad vision of what blockchain can do for enterprise, as in, creating a platform where you could anonymize and share a lot of data, without having to worry about security out in the internet, because the platform itself is so secure, is still there. But what we found out when we first started meeting with various different board members, because this technology is a very industry-changing technology, just like AI. I think a lot of AI, a lot of boards are talking about AI and pushing down AI as an initiative. But when we were dealing with blockchain at the time, what we found out was that at the board level, the business culture wasn't ready for it. Meaning, most boards are thinking about ways using technology to compete, whereas blockchain is a way to cooperate with your competitors, right? And be able to share information with people that you compete with. And so when it got down to the tokenomics of blockchain and how to share data and make it equitable for everyone in the industry, that's where the conversations went sideways. And so one of the decisions we made was that, just the business culture wasn't ready for blockchain to really adopt it to its full potential. And the other thing that we figured out is most companies aren't ready to automate data. There are a lot of mid-enterprise, because we wanted to focus on the mid to large enterprise with blockchain. Most enterprises are at a place where they have to, get their data organized to a point where they could start automating, whether it be machine learning to start, they're just not at that place yet. And so a lot of our projects got stopped around data governance. There was just too messy data to be able to automate back-end processes around data. And so we had to pivot into, focusing on blockchain to focusing on data governance and getting the data right, and implementing data warehouses and DevOps and automating back-end systems. That's really where most companies were. And so we pivoted to doing that. And then we started realizing that there were companies that are quote unquote IT light, meaning they're not utilizing technology to change their revenue streams. They're looking at technology as a way to optimize their back end operations, and so they look at technology as more of an operating expense, right? Those industries are very underserved by technology vendors, right? Because technology vendors assume that they're going to use technology as a big investment to change revenue streams. Most large enterprises are at that phase, but the mid enterprises that are in IT light industries are very ill served. And so that was a huge market segment that we realized that if we built technologies that could scale and be repeatable, that would be a very wide open market with little competition, because most technology vendors are going after the very large clients.
Sounds like a blue ocean strategy.
It is. I actually love that book.
Right. Yeah. And without naming names, can you give us a little more definition of what a medium-sized IT light company might, what might represent one like that, or what? How do we think of that?
So each industry segment looks at itself in different sizes, but I'll give you an example. In the CPG industry, what would classify a mid-sized IT light company would be a CPG company that's around 50 million in revenue, all the way up to about 500 million in revenue. And these companies are looking, they're making products, they're physical products, right? Whether it's be clothes or, food or electronics. And they look at their revenue streams from their products. And they look at IT as more of a infrastructure they need, as, to keep the lights on, to operate operations, right? And in that space, in that mid-enterprise space, the only solutions out there that are pre-made are the big enterprise applications that are really complex to implement, that requires pretty heavy IT or information systems teams that are very different from the IT. What I realized in that mid-enterprise IT light sector from a business development standpoint was that industry or that type of company, they don't really know when IT needs to shift over to information systems. And the IT people who are handling IT up until an inflection point, they don't really know how to manage enterprise applications and data, and software development, right? So there's this huge gap there. And so that's what we pivoted to.
So it sounds like, tell me if this is a correct appraisal of Pandoblox, it's a consulting company now.
It pivoted to a consulting company, and then it pivoted again to a SaaS platform. So what we did was we developed a managed data warehouse that comes with the data model. What we did was we templated by industry the data infrastructure, information systems infrastructure, and that back end to not only provide the technical platform, but also the knowledge in the data science, knowledge in the operations, right? Even down to figuring out, what certain min-max ranges should be around certain types of business intelligence and certain KPIs that the industry could follow, right? So, we've actually baked in a COO who can scale that business, and the CFO to really help model that back-end systems out. But the reason we can do that is most IT light industries, it's not rocket science. This is where a lot of fractional CFOs and COOs are really popular, right?
Right.
And they can jump from one CPG to another and really figure out, what those min-maxes should be. And so even down to that level, we've, built that into our product so that it'll really help companies scale, as they go from one inflection point to another.
So it feels like you're addressing the complexity of some of these heavier systems that require a great deal of effort to implement. You might also be attacking the price point, because in a SaaS model, it sounds like you're bringing a cost structure that may be more appropriate for these mid-market IT light companies as well. And it feels like you're not creating open heart surgery on the company that many times my experience is, whether you're putting in a CRM or an ERP or any type of inside business operations, it really becomes very mission critical and sometimes failed.
What we found is that most of the time it fails, and you nailed it. The analogy you just used is something that we talk about internally a lot, which is open heart surgery.
Oh, okay.
And the thing is, they're putting in the wrong size heart. Right? They're opening up the chest and then putting this giant heart in there, and then thinking that their body's going to be able to take it. So, in certain industries, if you include the small enterprise would be, let's say 10 million in revenue to 50, right? For CPG industry. Factor that in, it's something like 90% failure rate for ERP implementations, right? Because those systems were meant to have a lot of people managing various different value streams, right? And certain workflows to be, forced in there with a lot of auditing and governance that requires, human beings to manage it. And, these companies, they're lucky if they have a couple of people in middle management to run the day-to-day and then stop exactly all that they're doing and then change all their workflows. So that's exactly why we built it this way, is to snap into their existing infrastructure, like QuickBooks, right? You'd be surprised at how many mid-enterprise. So we're talking companies that are 500 million to $1 billion in revenue, where they put in an ERP, let's say NetSuite or Oracle, that when we take a look at the way their ERP was designed, it was designed just like their QuickBooks. And they still have silos of data that they're trying to aggregate, and they try to put it in a certain module and it's not working. So, before we did this pivot into starting a data SaaS platform, we were doing quote unquote digital transformation projects that really all they were was pruning out processes out of their ERP that belonged in a data warehouse, so they could normalize that data, create a single source of truth for that data, and then play around with it. Right? Start putting in some predictive analytics, start putting in some machine learning into it, right?
Yeah. And the implementation time for these larger systems can wear an organization out too, because it doesn't happen overnight. There's fatigue. There's usually a lot of misfires early on. It's behavioral changes. It's fraught with the whole change dynamic that can be so hard for organizations just lives within those ERP heavy installations, which is probably also a contributing factor to why it fails. People just, can't we just go back to what we used to do that worked? But not the case for you with your firm in a SaaS model. So
I love what you mentioned there, because in our estimation, a project like that is 75% organizational change management, right? When you get to an enterprise size, right, $500 million plus in revenue, it becomes a huge organizational change management project. But if we can get something in, if we can get a master data management structure in, if we can put together a data model that scales from 50 million to 100 million, you don't need to go through that organizational change management. You just need to put that structure in early on before you put in the ERP. Most companies put in ERP and then worry about the data later, because at 500 million is when they can afford to have a VP of IT or a CIO that really understands data and software development, right? But if you can put it in at that 50 million, you'll be able to scale a whole lot faster and skip out on millions of dollars of waste and years of development time.
Well, it's logical too that the smaller the company, the more manageable the data cleaning and is. And if it's clean to begin with at a certain point, then the issues that come up when it's harder to diagnose it when you're 10 times that size to actually get back to. Yeah, many times companies have to get smaller to get bigger again when they realize their data models are just they're not mature. They can't be trusted, frankly, to make business decisions. I'm wondering, in all of your experience, Henry, is there a piece of business advice that you would like to share with our audience that you have found particularly valuable?
I have two. One is, something that I think our team realized together as we've gone through so many pivots. And then there's a piece of advice that one of our board members, who's also my coach, gave me, the one that we figured out together as a team was, there's so much buzz around technology, right? And when there's the amount of buzz that you have, like for example around AI, it's easy for the board members to push that down as a initiative or a mandate even. But the thing that we figured out is all of these trends, the ones that stay, we're not talking 2-3 years, we're talking 10, 20 years. The trends that stay are where the marketing buzz and the technical details merge with operational practicality. When those three things meet, that's when it becomes a long-term trend. So blockchain hasn't met that yet. I think it's, from an operational practicality standpoint, culture needs to change in order for that to really hit. I think from a crypto standpoint, crypto is definitely here to stay, but that's one of a million different applications for blockchain, right? With AI, there's so much buzz around what you can automate, but practically most companies aren't ready to have that kind of automation yet, right? And so, I think what we learned is if you can meet those three things, meet the marketing buzz with technical details, and then have them merge with operational practicality, those three things really need to hit. So that's one big lesson we learned as we pivoted. The other advice that I learned from my coach Pat Turpin, this is a big shout out to Pat, who's on our board. Phenomenal entrepreneur and has had so much experience. One of the things he taught me was the job of the entrepreneur and the CEO, if the entrepreneur is both, is to look around corners, right? And that's not just about technology or the product; it's about everything. It's about the financial situation, marketing, sales. It's everything, right? And that's the responsibility. And I'm still learning how to do that after 20 years. 3GCS started in 2003. That one I just started because I just wanted to start something on my own. And it was really my MBA school. That's really where I learned hard knocks, right, about entrepreneurship. But that's the look around corners. That is the advice.
And that's as hard as it sounds impossible. You know what I mean? Like, to look around corners, it sort of feels like, well, how do you do that? And that therein lies some of it's intuition, right? Some of it's being aware of micro trends, seeing things before others do, that you look like you saw the future, but really you just saw the potential before others. So that's a good challenge. You mentioned when I introduced you that in addition to all this, you had one other job relative to your nonprofit. Can you share with us the mission for the name and the mission for your nonprofit?
Yeah, it's called the Guerrilla Community Movement. And the mission for that is to help the most underserved community in LA, which is the at-risk youth and at-risk young adults. So at-risk youth is between 14 to 18, and the young adults are 18 to 25. But that community is the most underserved because the only thing they really have is the foster care system, and it does not work well for teenagers. There aren't a lot of families who really want to foster and adopt that age. They're very problematic. And I'm not saying that as a judgment, right? So when we first got started, I started the Guerrilla Community Movement as Guerrilla Mass Movement. It started off as a need for masks. My wife, who's in healthcare, a pediatrician, didn't have enough masks for within her hospital, and so that's what sparked it off. And we're donating masks to people in healthcare. But it pivoted into donating masks to people who were in the front lines and needed assistance. And from there, we realized that the at-risk youth community was the most underserved. There were a lot of kids who were out in the streets without parents, without any support. And that's who we realized needed the most support, and we focused there.
Yeah, I can fully appreciate what you said was the challenges of a 14 to 18-year-old youth to be put into a foster home and maybe be adopted into a permanent situation. And also, many times once you hit 18, it's sort of like, okay, good luck. Hopefully everything that we did for you up to that point serves you well, but 18 to 25 you can very easily get lost.
Then that's sort of a starting point, right? So the vision of what we're looking to do is to create a community orphanage that is a part regenerative farm. What we found is the process of getting people to understand how nature works in the cycle of life and be a part of farming is a great way to heal the body, heal the soul, heal the mind. And what we figured out along the way as we worked with various different people who have the same passion, we found out is that you can build tiny homes in a farm and consider the tiny home farming equipment. And so when we're looking at a property to do this, we were really running against the political issue of YIMBY and NIMBY, right? Not in my backyard, yes, in my backyard. And so it was a big political concern, but and we wanted to build tiny homes for the kids so that they could actually live and potentially own the property as they get older into the 18-year-old phase, right? 18-year to 25-year. And so the way we got around that was looking at a regenerative farm, and then we started an urban garden and realized how many of the kids not only really knew how to do any of that, but they didn't even know, where some of these vegetables grew. They were, shocked to see that carrots grew underground. They thought they grew on trees, and and they were just in wonder,
Right.
looking at the whole process and connecting to that life and connecting to nature was such a healing modality for them. And so, back in the days, there's the saying, it takes a village to raise kids, right?
Right. Yes.
And if you look at the ancient communities that we had, everyone had a rite of passage program.
Exactly.
Some started at the age of 12, like the yoga community starts at 12. The Native Indian community starts at the age of 14, right? But, this rite of passage program is about identity and really finding yourself. And it typically starts at a young age. In the US, thinking that it starts at 18 is sort of weird, but at 18, there is no rite of passage program. There is no community backing to help kids to find themselves. And so what we want to do is create a community approach, a regenerative farm that serves the community, that will also be an orphanage for this demographic.
So if people would like to learn more about this organization, how do they do it, Henry?
It's the guerrillamovement.org.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for having a heart for that and putting your time and treasures against it. Because, one of the things that I've also read or understand about the rites of passage is it's the community coming around the individual to prepare them for the next phase of their life, but it also builds that confidence within the individual that they're ready for whatever the next phase is because they've successfully went through the process. So it helps them as well. So let's talk, we have just a few minutes left. Pandoblox, what's the future? You're going to be back on the show some point in the future. What's going to be different, changed? Where are you taking? What's the vision for the future?
Yeah, so the vision of Pandoblox is to actually merge with my other company, 3GC, that is more of a IT help desk company. And the vision of that, the reason we want to do that is we want to come up with a very innovative solution that we call data help desk. Most companies and most vendors assume that the client or the company has their data correct. Reality is, for most IT-like companies, they don't even have data teams.
It's a mess. It's a mess.
Yeah. So the vision is, as we combine the two companies, we'll be able to provide a service where clients can call in just like they would an IT help desk, call in to a data help desk and get all of their data issues resolved. And there's going to be a lot of AI baked into that. So AI to make decisions around data governance and data hygiene as we're intaking a lot of source data from various different applications and spreadsheets, right? So there'll be a lot of pattern recognition, a lot of large language model learning, and applying various different decision points in AI to take the repetitive decisions that people would have to make and turn that into various different AI scripts, right? So that's the vision. We're going to come out with the data help desk.
I don't think I've ever heard that term or that business model before. So how exciting, how disruptive potentially for your business as well. And as you've done in your nonprofit space, I applaud you for trying to help these companies that have growth potential to get the information right, data that turns into information, so they make the best decisions so they can scale, because it is really challenging if you can't trust the information that you have on how do you plan for how do you even see around the corner if all your gauges are questionable, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Am I really going 65? It feels like we're going a lot slower, but it says 65.
yeah. And most of the time that meter's off. So
right. Yeah. Or maybe you're going 90 and you go, I'm only going 65. Oh no, yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. If someone would like to learn more about your companies, where do they go, Henry?
Yeah. So pandoblox.com, www.pandoblox.com, and that's with an X, PANDO, BLOX, and 3GCgroup.com, 3 as in the number, G as in generation, C as in communication, group, GROUP.com.
Well, it's an exciting future that you laid out for us here on the show today, and I wish you nothing but continued success. And thanks for being a guest of the program.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
And I'd like to thank the audience. You're part of Orange County's longest running business talk show. Henry's show is going to be joining our catalog of over 1,500 episodes that we've done over the years that we've been on the air. If you're an Orange County entrepreneur or an Orange County leader of a nonprofit organization, Henry happens to be both, and you'd like to be a guest on the show to tell your story, it's easy. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm Rick, R-I-C, Franzi, F-R-A-N-Z-I. And just message me and let me know that you have an interest in being on the show. Be happy to respond to you and talk to you about what that might mean and how you get on the program. We're always looking for interesting guests like Henry. Until the next time we all have a chance to be together, I hope all of your business decisions will move your organization in a positive direction.